Thanks for clicking on this video. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon and turn on all notifications to keep up to date with the latest information and discussions. Has Super, or at least this first stint of Super, aged well like a fine wine, or is it aged like a pile of old bacon, all limp and tragic, but it's still bacon, so you'd probably eat it anyway? Hey guys, MasakoX here. It's been over a year since Dragonball Super episode 131 aired in Japan and on streaming services across the world. Eventually. A lot of us thought that this was the end of Dragon Ball on TV, or in any kind of medium. Our mind was left in flux and there were so many questions that we had spinning around our heads. Was this it? Why did it end like this instead of like in Z, where we actually got a proper ending? Did 17 really enjoy his time on that boat? We just don't know. These questions were just left ambiguous to us, just like how Toei likes it, leaving us wanting more. They're clever like that. Cheeky, but clever. Now, I've mused about Super and its age before on this channel in various manners, such as what were the worst episodes of Super, and the concerns that Haverock and I have had concerning that show. But I feel like now we've reached the chronological milestone of 1 year. We, like many news package shows and rolling news stations like to do, is to look back at something 1 year on, to see how things have progressed. And yes, I'm not gonna lie, that phrase is a little bit of a pet peeve of mine, but I'll still roll with it for the sake of an interesting thought experiment. On the 24th of March 2019, it had been 12 months since Super finished its run and left us all in a state of confusion. Where was the series going to go, if at all? And would the channels that sprouted up around the advent of Super go away? Well, fortunately, I have seen the community thrive with new channels popping up all over the place, adding their own spins on the franchise, doing their own what-ifs, their own theories, and their own discussions. I congratulate you for sticking around and just giving all this a go. Dragon Ball is slowly but surely becoming much more aware in the mainstream and the grander public eye, and together, we can show everybody just how much of an awe-inspiring series this thing that we know as Dragon Ball truly is. Yeah, okay, back to the thoughts. I had plenty of them. We now know a little bit more about the goings-on behind the scenes of the show since it debuted back in 2015. As I reported a few weeks ago on the Margin News via the Twitter user Deem939, our suspicions were confirmed that Toei had an idea in mind for the series and to make hay while the sun shines, profiteering, but as it turns out from Tatsuya Nagamine, they didn't really give their staff all that much motivation to do so. How can I be so sure? Well, Deem939 translated an interview with the Dragon Ball Super Broly movies director Tatsuya Nagamine in the popular Japanese magazine Animage. In that, he compared the amount of attention Toei gave the staff for the series and for the movie, and there was quite a big difference. Toei didn't put any effort to do anything to help the quality of Super, just saying, do your best to the staff. For the movie, there was a proper budget and schedule, and those two things are the main keys that will bring enthusiastic animators to you. Toei has the power to manage things, even if they are considered as a collapse in other studios. 1 year on, we can see that this statement makes perfect sense. For years, we all knew that there was something wrong with Super, it just seemed very odd. The announcement of the series 2 months prior to its debut in July 2015, with no visuals, no previews, and not even a proper logo. Something was odd here. Come on, you gotta admit. Then we had the episode 5 debacle, and then some of the staff members coming out to reporters that the deadlines that they had for Super were just ludicrous and unworkable. Now, granted, Nagamine was only brought onto the production in 2017, with co-producer of the series up until the end, Ryota Nakamura, for the beginning of the Universe Survival arc. So he wasn't there for the absolute beginning of the series, but if there were problems at the midway point still, before the Universe Survival arc, that major sea change that we all had, it's all the more telling. And it's even more telling about what we would expect from Broly when it was Nagamine who was the story director for episode 95 of Super. You know the one I'm talking about, the one with shiny boy Freezy Pop there? Oh man, that was a really good episode. Alright, so where am I going with this? Well, now that we have the first 131 episodes available to us at any time, it's safe to say that you can see the progression in quality as well as Toei's apathetic attitude at work. You can tell that this series was a reactive one. This wasn't a series that was here to please fans, or was made with care from the minds at the top. The staff did the best that they could with the little guidance that they had from the higher up, and we could see them struggling with a plot that was a repeat of what we got from the original 2 pretty good movie stories. Or did they have to handle a schedule that was realistically unsustainable? Now we could see things improving with Nakamura and Nagamine arriving, as well as the adoption of Toei's latest line art technology that was also used for the 2017 Tiger Mask series. And what's your opinion on that change, by the way? Did you like it? Did it make things a little more organic in the age of digital animation that we have today? Vote up top. I'm actually kind of curious. I, for one, am pleased that it arrived, as it showed that Toei was getting some kind of a grip, starting to really realize what they had here and what they commissioned a couple of years prior. In regards to the story, you can tell that Toriyama, alongside with Toyotaro, started off a little slow and a little unsure about what to do. Toriyama had good plots from the Battle of Gods and Resurrection F movies, and so therefore he thought, well, why don't you just repurpose them? But you can tell that from the Goku Black arc onwards, that's when things started to get quite compelling, and where you can really see that the writers were getting creative and trying out new things. Take Zamasu, for example. Okay, despite my protestations of some of his actions in the series and the fact that I found him annoying at the time, we'd never seen anything like him in the series. Justice, a fallen Kai. Actually kind of winning, almost. That never happened before, or rarely happened before. And even though the implementation of this character model was a little ham-fisted at times, the general idea was pretty solid. In the 4th volume of the manga, Toriyama and Toyotaro are conversing with one another, and from the text, you can tell that they had some good times plotting out Zamasu's creation, and that Toriyama was glad that Toyotaro was around. I think I started by going, let's change things up a bit. I was shocked when I first read your original draft. I thought of gods as being absolutely good, so having one of them turn evil raised the tension. The sense of tension flowing from the story from that point onward was incredible. At his core, Zamasu is good like Shin, though I guess you could say he was so fastidious that it backfired. But you know, for this future Trunks arc, you had to depict Zamasu and Trunks' inner conflict, right? If this was back when I was drawing the manga myself, then I doubt if I could have done it. I mean, I'm not very good at depicting a character's psychology on the page. So this all came together because now I only have to think of the story. Toyotaro did great. It's precisely because he drew it for me that the future Trunks arc was able to be made. On my own, I doubt I would have been able to express Zamasu's fall to the dark side. These two genuinely worked as a very solid team, and I reckon that, like Toriyama mused, Super may have been completely different in terms of an entity if it was just Toriyama on his own, staying within his comfort zone of bad guy after bad guy, with not much psychological complexity or intrigue like most modern villains tend to have. Things are a little bit more in-depth today. Now for the nostalgic fans, that may have been no problem, but in terms of picking up new fans and the new demographic and the new age, they wouldn't have had such endearing memories of the past glories that they had. They would have been bored. So in that regard, Super does its job of pulling in new fans from a new generation with characters such as Zamasu. I mean, after all, if Zamasu was such a dud character, we wouldn't have seen him back as a pirate in Super Dragon Ball Heroes, now would we? They must have done something right. This teamwork was enhanced with the Tournament of Power, with the revelation that the GODs, other than Beerus and Champa, were a collaborative effort in terms of design between the two writers as well as the character designers, which is to imply that the torch was being passed more and more, with Toyotaro getting more responsibility to shape the Dragon Ball series as a whole, with Toriyama providing his own ideal level of oversight. Now, okay, when you put it that way, you can see Super evolving, and now with a year behind us, I can see it more and more. Dragon Ball Super was an evolutionary product. Okay, what do I mean by this? Well, you can see that when Super started, it was using a formula that had been tried and tested for year after year, but it gotten rather stale. The characters looked really stiff, and even though in the 90s Yamamuro's style looked amazing and intimidating and it just worked really well off the page, it hadn't aged well with the advent of modern technologies and techniques. Yamamuro has actually professed time and time again that he doesn't watch other anime to try and seek inspiration and insight from modern trends, to see what other anime are doing and get good ideas to bring into Super and help it adapt. Now instead of that, he just relies on what worked before. Something you can see very well in the Heroes special anime. The same shot over and over again. I mean, you know, it may look cool the first time, but maybe not the second time or the 100th time. Over the course of Super's initial run, and its progression throughout, you can tell that things were being experimented with, and without Toei overseeing it as much, the team grew more and more confidence in which to try things out, and it worked out for the better. Nagamine's sentiments of the lack of oversight might have been the best thing for the production. It allowed things to change and adapt with the inclusion of Frieza for the second time, the inclusion of Kale and Caulifla, the idea of the Tournament of Power at all. These ideas came from the new generation, trying things out, inspiring Toriyama to try and think outside the box, as well as help Toyotaro steer the ship. And as a result, Toriyama got the ideal amount of supervision that he wanted to do. The master was okay with that because he didn't have to draw chapter by chapter, week in, week out, so that was okay with him. And with the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie, you can see the end point of that mission and where they were going. Now that Toei had actually seen the product as a whole and realized that it still made a lot of money, they must have realized what was going on, and it was working out well for all concerned, and so they gotta cherish what they had and provide the support and the budget this time, and most importantly, the time. And this time provide good deadlines, the time in which to realize their potential, and as well as we all know, it paid dividends. With all the rumors of the series returning in the summer, they're gaining more and more traction, this was the right time to ask the question in my opinion. Has Super aged well? Well, yes and no. The first half has definitely not aged well at all. It is a sign of a bygone era where the old Dragon Ball formula doesn't quite work, and it feels rather insular and inbred. However, you can tell that there was a lot of love put into it despite the pressures being forced down on it upon the staff, and that with time and experience on this production, it would be nurtured into something much greater. Now is that time. By the time we get to the end of the series, we still have a series with some issues present, that's a given, but the overall outlook is so much more rosy. There is a future to be had here in this series. There needs to be more. The biggest concern that Super Episode 131 would have just been the end. It would have ended there, and all we got was a rushed ending, despite a rather exciting final episode as a whole. They did pretty well on that one. What we got there was just a taster of what we got in the Broly movie. Dragon Ball Super, in the end, was a necessary exercise. It needed to change. Dragon Ball needed to change. It needed to develop to modern standards and allow the new talent to use their experience on other modern shows to revive Dragon Ball for the new age, a show that they would have loved when they were kids and inspired them to go on to do other series. Dragon Ball now is fresher than ever because of it, especially with the likes of Nagamine and Shintane providing a visual rebirth for the first time in a quarter of a century. The future, I think, is bright. So what do you guys think? Do you feel that Super has aged well? Do you think Dragon Ball would have endured without it? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going, and I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!